Emotionally and aesthetically, this is how important sound is to cinema too. For now it is very clear that though cinema or film is a visual medium, it still needs the second vital component of sound or audio. The introduction of sound to cinema revolutionized the medium from just a silent film, but to something that can be heard, thus palpably felt. Sounds, in other words, made the film viewing experience complete and encompassing. The sound elements of films are first recorded during principal photography or actual location shooting. All sounds recorded or collected at the location shooting are called production sound elements. Picture and sound are simultaneously recorded. Sound is recorded in quarter-inch sound tapes, while the picture is recorded by a cinematographic camera in 35mm film negatives. This recording is called double system recording. The clapper or slate provides the scene identification, recorded on a slate in film, and sharp sound on tape that represents the start of both picture and sound. Sometimes the clapper comes last at the end of the take. The production soundman is responsible for recording the major elements of sound during shooting. These elements are dialogues, the synchronized effects, and the ambience or atmosphere of the location. Some sounds need not be as long as the accompanying shot, like the traffic sound in a street scene. The not too lengthy background traffic sound can be recorded, looped, and rolled to cover the entire scene. Aside from the soundman, a mic man is present during a location shoot. He holds and operates the microphone boom, which is usually suspended in mid-air above the heads of the actors and actresses, without allowing the microphone or its shadow to enter the frame. A soundman is also required to pick up what is called a room tone, the real sound of the set when no dialogues are being delivered. He records this after asking a moment of silence. These establishing sounds correspond to the film footages taken as establishing shots of the location. The sounds recorded in location are eventually brought to the post-production studio together with exposed film negatives. In the country, there are at least 6 major post-production outfits, namely Sampaguita Studios, LVN Studios, Cinecolor, Roadrunner, Digilink, and Optima. In choosing the post-production company where a producer can turn his film into a finished product, the following considerations are best taken into account: the financing schemes offered, the visual effects capabilities, and the availability of stereo sound system. The sounds in the original quarter-inch tapes are transferred to 35mm perforated magnetic films, while the corresponding exposed film negatives are processed at the laboratory and printed into positive stocks to produce copy prints. The 35mm magnetic tapes and the prints thus synchronize sound with film. The sound editor fine-tunes the synchronization of sound and pictures with the use of a synchronizing block by simply matching the clapper notation on the film with the clapper ID in the magnetic tape, which can be read through a sound reader. But there are times when the sound and the picture do not synchronize. This is called out of sync, which can be caused by either the camera or the sound tape recorder not running according to the prescribed reference point of 24 frames per second for the camera and 7.5 inches per second for the sound tape recorder. This is brought about when the tape recorder battery and the camera power supply are faulty or defective. After clapper-to-clapper matching, the synchronized sequences are arranged chronologically into rolls of 1,000 feet, which are then numbered as reel 1 up to the last reel. These reels of film are then reviewed one by one in a projector with sound running in a separate machine called the reproducer. This review process is called the interlock preview. Usually, most of the production staff headed by the director attend the interlock preview. These also include the scriptwriter, the cinematographer, the soundman, the production designer, and so forth. The main purpose of the interlock preview is to determine if there are technical defects or problems and missing scenes which affect the continuity of the story. The director might recommend the possible reshoots of scenes and the shooting of additional sequences. Let us hear from several sound engineers how they prepare themselves for their important role in the completion of a film project. Among the sound elements, apparently the most important are the dialogues, which are indispensable in telling a film's story. There are two kinds of dialogues used in films. The first are actual dialogues delivered during the shooting, referred to as original sound dialogues. The second are dialogues which are dubbed. Dubbing is also called dialogue replacement. In this process, actors and actresses repeat their dialogues to perfectly match their voices to the actual lip movements seen on the screen. A perfect match is thus created between the captured voice sound in the studio and the sound or voice recorded on the set. The dubbed voice is louder and clearer than the original dialogue. There are actually 5 major reasons for dubbing. First, not all performers have the same level of vocal intensity during actual delivery. Second, more often than not, crowds or the atmosphere might have disturbed the dialogues. Third, a director sometimes continues giving instructions during a take that his voice overlaps with the dialogues. Fourth, the live sound effects might be louder than the dialogues. And fifth, dubbing can correct the tone of delivery. To facilitate dubbing, it is necessary to loop the picture for visual guide, the original dialogue for sound guide, and a virgin tape where the new dialogues will be recorded. These are made of 35mm magnetic tapes, which are cut exactly the same length to the shot to be dubbed. Guide loops are the actual dialogues delivered during shooting and already transferred to the 35mm magnetic tapes to guide the actors and actresses on the lines they must dub. Each loop contains 1 or 2 sentences delivered. During dubbing, a projector and 2 reproducers are utilized. The projector, which provides the picture, the magnetic reproducer, which provides the guide for the dialogues, and a sound recorder for the new dialogue. After dubbing, the premixing of dubbed tracks into a single track follows. This applies to dialogues which overlap each other and 2 or more characters simultaneously speaking. The premixed loops are assembled and returned to their original reel position, with the sound editor making sure that the dubbed tracks are in sync. The dubbed dialogues are previewed with the picture through an interlock system to determine if there are missing or undubbed lines, and to assess if the voice acting of the performers is consistent. If there is no more missing or undubbed dialogues, recording of the crowd follows in separate tracks. Then the sound engineer proceeds to the balancing of mixed dialogues and crowd tracks. The balanced dialogues will be ready for final mixing with the other sound elements. In this phase of filmmaking, we will come across such phrases as sweetening or colorization of all the sound elements. Sweetening the dialogues track means cleaning, balancing the dubbed or original dialogues for their correct perspective. Colorization of sound using a multi-effects processor is the process of making the sounds authentic and realistic. This is most effective when a voice is heard from a telephone receiver, or through a megaphone, The reverberating sound inside a church, or a hall, can be enhanced by the colorization process. There are crowd scenes in a movie. The dubbing of each scene requires a separate schedule. Several dubbers, including children, dub the crowd scenes simultaneously. Sometimes, more than 2 or 3 tracks are used to compose the needed sound, depending on the size of crowd present in the screen. After the dialogues and crowd, we cross over to the sound effects preparation. Even while the picture is being edited, sound effects are already being readied and prepared. An inventory of the sound effects needed for the film is listed down reel by reel. The sound effects man has at his disposal a library of sound effects that can be so precise that there is a distinct sound of a 1950 Chevrolet car, or of a large metal door closing, or 2 groups quarreling. The range of sound effects is indeed so staggering. There's one for a volcanic eruption, of bacon frying in the pan, or even mice squeaking. After compiling and recording all the needed sound effects into 35mm tapes, the next step is to edit the effects according to what the picture needs. The sync effects are segregated into different tracks. These are body punches, gunshots, door opening and closing tracks, foot kicks, slaps, whistles, tinsels, cars, aircraft, baby crying, and dog barking. In addition to all the sync sound effect tracks, the body movements are laid in or dubbed against picture on the screen directly to 35mm live effects tracks. This is called live effects recording. Live effects sessions look comical as the sound of their footsteps, the flick of a cigarette lighter, hooves of running horses, water pouring and splashing, commotions, and hammering of nail into wood, and including other off-sync movements. Naturally, the needed props and equipment are hauled into and clutter the recording studio. The sound effects recorded in the 35mm films are then separately strung and placed on the corresponding places where the picture is located. These are called sync effects lay-in. The sound effects are edited and placed approximately the same length with the picture frames. After the sound effects lay-in, pre-mixing follows. This process requires a multi-effects processor, an instrument for designing sounds, which do not exist at all. It is also used to enhance, rebuild, manipulate, and provide more dynamic range and headroom to make the sound more authentic and exciting. After the balancing of dialogue, pre-mixing of all the effects elements, mood music lay-in comes next. There are 3 different kinds of music needed to supplement the picture. These are the theme music, mood music, and the incidental music. Now that we have completed the preparation of all the sound elements, let us hear from some of our able sound engineers or mixers what this important last phase of post-production in filmmaking is all about. The sound engineer, with the guidance of the director, now performs the penultimate step before a final film print comes out of the laboratory. The sound mixer collates all the sound elements together for the final mixing. These include the balanced dialogues, the crowd dubbing, the mixed sound effects, and the musical score. A final element is added into this: the atmosphere and room tone sounds, recorded during shooting or culled from the sound effects library. The mixed track then undergoes photographic sound transfer, which will enable the printing of the film's parts into one positive print copy. Printing of the parts one by one then follows. The 1,000-foot parts or rolls are turned into 2,000-foot reels for a complete print. This print will be distributed to the cinema theaters. So finally, the first print of a new film comes out of the laboratory. Another film is born into the entertainment world.